I love folk art and illustration, and if we share the passion to this style, I invite you to join me in this tutorial where I'll show you how to create a very simple botanical composition with a moth in the center. Hello, my name is Irina. I'm a UK illustrator and art teacher and the artist behind the brand of Busy My Studio. And you're on my channel dedicated to art and illustration. Here I'll show my art processes, both in digital and traditional media, share snippets of my creative life, and do a lot of tutorials, especially in Procreate. I'll be very happy if you stay. In this tutorial, I'll be using my own Procreate brush set Folkio, the set specially created for folk-inspired illustrations. It's absolutely packed with various folk art elements like animals, birds and botanicals, as well as artistic brushes for sketching, drawing, painting and coloring, some beautiful pattern brushes, and of course bonus elements like textured canvases and color palettes. At the moment, I run a 20% discount on this set in my shop. I'll leave all the information in the description. In this tutorial, I'll also be using a texture overlay and my own color palette. Both you can download for free. I'll also leave the link in the description. If you are ready, let's begin. So I've created a screen-sized canvas and I've dropped the texture on top of it. I'm changing the blending mode of the texture to overlay. To prevent drawing on it, you can lock it away. I'm creating a new layer and dragging it between the texture and the background, so all layers will now be stacked here. Next, I'm changing the background color. I tap on the background color layer and select the swatch at the bottom of the color swatches window. My canvas is now ready to work on. Let's create our sketch. My illustration features a central main element surrounded symmetrically by other elements. Therefore, defining the canvas center is the first step. For that, I tap on the range icon, Canvas, switch on Drawing Guide, Edit Drawing Guide. I tap on Symmetry, and now I have this vertical line dividing the canvas into two equal halves. By the way, if you don't see the line, it's probably because it's too dark against the canvas color. To fix this, just use the slider on top to bring the color to something lighter. Then I go back to the layers. I can see that the drawing assist is active. I need to switch it off as we won't need it at this stage of preparation of the sketch. Now I'm ready to drop the moth as the center of my composition. For that, I go to the Folkio Animal Stamps and select the moth sketch brush. As for the color, you can pick any from the palette, as long as it's visible on the canvas, so I pick a very light swatch. I stamp the moth on the canvas and scale it up to the size I want for my composition. I make sure the moth is placed exactly in the center. You can see by this marquee box and the handles against the canvas central line. Now I'm ready to start building the composition around it by arranging various botanicals around the moth. I create a new layer and I'm about to start stamping the botanicals on one side. Mind you, if you are a right-handed person like me, arrange your elements on the right. If you are left-handed, then your elements should go on the left. You will understand why in a moment. I go to the Folkio Botanical Stamps and the brush I select first is Berry Twig 7. I stamp it somewhere on the canvas, then select the arrow and arrange it at an angle till I'm happy with this positioning. I will be creating each botanical element on a separate layer, so I have the flexibility to arrange it exactly the way I want without affecting the other elements. Next, I select the Leafy Twig 3 brush, stamp it on the canvas, and by playing with its scale and positioning, I arrange it on the right side. I repeat the same step with the Berry Twig 3 brush on a new layer. Next, I do the same thing with the Leafy Twig 2 brush. There are over 60 various botanical and decorative elements stamp brushes in Folklore set. Plenty to choose from, so you don't have to select the exact ones I'm using in this tutorial, but choose the one you like best. As for me, my next stamp of choice is the Folk Bloom 4, and I repeat exactly same steps as previously on a new layer. This time, I place the element right in the middle above the moth. I duplicate it, drag it down, and reduce the size of it. Finally, I select the Gooseberry 2 brush, stamp it on a new layer, and arrange its scale and positioning. Now the base of my sketch is ready. Next step is flattening all the botanical elements in one layer. Next step is important, drawing the actual composition that we'll be coloring later. I reduce the opacity of the botanical elements layer, then create a new layer on top of it. I tap on this new layer and take the drawing assist. This function will allow me to draw on one side and the drawing will automatically, symmetrically appear on the other side. I go to the Folklore Essential Artistic Brushes group and select the Outliner Monoliner brush. With a lighter color from the palette, I start tracing the elements from the botanical layer below, just on the right side. And because the drawing assist is on, whatever I draw on the right side will appear mirrored on the left side. I'm not being too precious trying to precisely trace the botanical elements. I use them more like a guide. I fill the leaves with solid color. Going forward, I'll be filling some elements like berries with solid color and some I will leave as line work. You choose your preferred way. For each new element, I'll be creating a new layer and switching the drawing assist on just to give myself the flexibility to make sure that I can maneuver each element without affecting others. But that's just my preferred way to work. It's totally okay to draw the elements on the same layer right away. I'm also altering the size of the brush. It changes the thickness of the line, which gives more variety in the elements. Finally, I add some more very simple hand-drawn elements to fill some empty gaps. Now the botanical base for my composition is ready. Next thing, I'm gonna adjust the moth sketch. I'll go back to the moth sketch layer, tap on it and switch the drawing assist on. With the eraser tool, I get rid of the fillers, and with the Outliner Monoliner brush, I draw new ones to give the moth and the whole composition a more whimsical look. Now I fill the moth with solid color, so I have a solid base for coloring it. Now the illustration is ready to be colored, and I'm gonna start with the moth. I create a new layer and clip it as a mask to the moth layer. I select the Ultimate Filler brush and making sure that the drawing assist is switched on, I start coloring in the moth. Once the base layers are done, I put all the moth layers in a separate group and move on to the coloring of the botanical elements. I flatten all the botanical elements into one layer. I make a new layer as a clipping mask and switch the drawing assist on. With the same Ultimate Filler brush, I start coloring the botanicals. Next step is adding decorative details to the moth. For that, I create a new layer as a clipping mask and make sure that the drawing assist is on. The brush I'm going to use is the colored pencil brush. Now I'm going to add some details to the botanicals. I go back to the botanical stack, create a new layer, clip it as a mask, and switch the drawing assist on. The brush I will use is the sketching brush Smooth. I will be changing my brush size as I go, depending on the size of botanical elements. Now the folk composition is pretty much ready. You can leave it as it is if you prefer your composition, your illustration, on a flatter side, but there is one more optional step, which is adding a bit of color shadows. For that, I add a new layer to the moth stack. The place in the stack depends on what element you are adding shading to first, and change the blending mode to multiply. There are many nice textured shading brushes in the set to choose from. In this illustration, I'll use the crosshatch texturizer, adjusting the opacity, and I add some subtle shading to the moth. Now I will do the same with the botanical elements. On a new layer, with the blending mode changed to multiply, I add subtle color shading to the leaves and berries. And just like that, the folk botanical composition is ready. That was very simple, right? If you decide to use your illustration based on this tutorial on social media, please kindly consider tagging me at my_busy_may. I'd love to see your art. And see you next time. Bye!